Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a Linux distribution, a desktop environment or application. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, tech, open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I got Adam Grubbs, Dolphin, Vince, Brian. Brian's new to the stream. Welcome. Colin, Eris, and Rick. How is everybody?
Good. Pretty good.
Excellent. Just what? Like just okay?
Peachy keen.
Peachy keen. Well, I know you used to have Space Invaders on your shirt. I wasn't sure if like maybe you were trying to tell us something about visitors or something like that.
How can you not love Space Invaders? It's like, besides Pong, it was the first video game I ever played, so it's fine.
Yeah, Pong was good stuff, you know. Beep, boop. It's good times. I think Space Invaders actually was quite the revolutionary game at the time.
A big step up from Pong.
What's that?
Well, it is the only game my father's ever rolled the score over, because that's how you beat a game back in the day. It was roll the score over.
Oh.
So he rolled the score over one night on the Atari 2600 version of Space Invaders. Never played it again. He was done. As far as I know, he's never picked up a video game besides chess in his life, except for Space Invaders.
Has he played Battle Chess?
I presume yes. I don't know. I think we did have a copy of Battle Chess when I was a kid.
Basically one of the greatest games I've ever remembered playing.
Battle Chess?
Well, I tell you, it's not that great if it takes 5 minutes for an animation to play out because your computer is so slow, which was how it worked at my house. But whatever, we had a copy.
Yeah, I think I played it like on an old 486 sometime in the 90s. I thought it was pretty cool. Then I played it on an Amiga, and it was way better.
Yeah, I played it on the Amiga, dude. That's how I learned. I was like, oh, these guys can move this way, and it was cool. It's watching the little guys fight.
I never played chess on the computer with my father, but I did play a lot of chess, like real chess with him. And he would always crush me. Like, it was just not even a contest. He would just crush me so quickly. Yeah, good times.
Yep. I had those same experiences.
Well, be sure to do the straw poll. The straw poll is about MX Linux. And since we do have Dolphin, Mr. MX Linux himself, make sure you say nice things. So on the docket for today, we'll be doing our MX Linux distro exploration. We will talk about next week. Do our last call, but first, what have you been doing in Linux or tech? I didn't have any volunteers, so I'm gonna rant and rave about a problem I'm having. So I've got, I think, all but like 4 switches on my property that are smart switches, and 2 of them are in a barn. The other 2 are because they're wired stupid. So I've been using these Linkind switches. They look like little like little decorative toggle switches, and the ones that I've been using make it very easy to flash this ESP32 microcontroller. It's right here at the top. You can put little clips on there, and that will, as the ground, the volt positive, receive, transmit, and GPIO pin 1. So it's very easy. You just gotta pull GPIO pin 1 down to ground, and then you can put it in a program state. Well, these new ones, you can't clip onto it. They're right here. And there's no lead for GPIO pin 1 to short against. So I had to find which one GPIO pin is. Like the third one over. Probably can't see it very well. But the third one over from the this side. I can't tell which side it is from the camera. Anyway, and then so I have to solder some leads on there and then do this. So it's going to take me a lot longer to reprogram these things. Now, why do they have to make this more difficult? I don't know, but it's very disappointing. So I don't know if anybody else.
ES32.
Yep, ESP32.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people doing a lot of hacks and stuff with those in general. Seems like a pretty popular platform.
Yeah, I mean when every switch in my house has a web server on it, essentially, which I mean it's pretty wild when you think about it. I mean, how difficult was it to set up a BBS, 20, 30 years ago, right? Dolphin, did you set up a BBS before?
I have never set up a BBS. I have logged into BBSs.
Okay.
My friend of mine ran one in our college dorm, and he had one phone line, so we could all only one person at a time get on the BBS. So, but never set one up.
But it's just funny to think, that setting up a BBS was a time consuming process. I never set one up either, but I watched like some YouTube thingy on setting up a BBS. It looked time consuming. Then you got to put all the content in, and basically I take for granted now because my light switches each have a web server, and use MQTT to communicate around the their status to a broker, MQTT broker, and works great. Actually, it's very reliable. I'm just hoping that these work. The inside of it. So you have your, you wired up in the back here, but it's got just a little relay inside there. So when you click it, it turns relay on or off. So it's pretty simple. Not a lot to it. Anyway.
Those are controlled over Wi-Fi, right?
Yep, Wi-Fi. Maybe that's why my Wi-Fi suffers here. I'm kidding, but maybe.
There's like a billion devices communicating on it.
Well, it's not a billion devices here. I can actually let you know how much it is here. Just a hot
Wasn't that
second.
the advantage of like Z-Wave or Zigbee or something? Was that each device acts as a repeater or something like that?
Yeah.
Versus Wi-Fi devices.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess the devices are more expensive, though, right?
yeah, they might be. Okay, so I have 63 devices on my network. I should say 63. 63 of these on my, and then I have Insteon also, which is older, and I have 13 of those devices.
To give you perspective,
They-
imagine there's 63 of us in here all talking at the same time.
Well, let's imagine there's 63 Adam Grubbs all talking at the same time about, Silver Blue or the status of gaming.
It wouldn't be 63 long. They would be dropping like flies.
But they obviously don't all take up resources at the same time, do they? That if you're not doing anything with them, or
No.
or they always pinging back or something.
No, they don't chatter very much. They're pretty quiet. Only
Yeah.
when you call them, they have like a heartbeat thing basically, and then only when
Right.
you request them to do something, then they change their status. But they're not very chatty, which is good. Because if they're very chatty, then that'd be problematic.
When you think about it now, how everything can easily network wirelessly, and how difficult it was like at the beginning. Like remember that the other episode when you talked about the 50 years of Ethernet,
Yeah.
and then that video from Computer File, they talked about vampire taps, right? And they would have an Ethernet cable that would go from one side of the room, like a big room, to the other side. And if you wanted to connect the computer, you would use a vampire tap. I'll put the link in the chat. And with the vampire tap, it physically penetrates the cable, and then you would hook up your computer to that. That's the way networking was done back.
Wow,
then.
that's crazy. Oh man. How did that even work without like? Well, imagine it's like a coax, right? Was it coax?
Because there was no like Ethernet jacks,
Right.
and there was like no idea of switches back then, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So you would have to like physically make connections that way every single time you wanted to connect something to the cable.
That's nuts. It's really amazing that all that stuff worked as well as it did. I mean, maybe it didn't work all that well, but nonetheless, still pretty amazing.
It's still around. Ethernet still exists 50 years later.
Well, yeah, it's a little different though. Well, excellent. Did anybody here ever mess with microcontrollers?
A little bit here and there. Oh, I was just gonna say I never got into the ESP32. What was the other one? ESP.
8211 is another one I
82's.
use.
Yeah, dude, I forget which. It was a while ago, and then the Arduino and man, I don't even remember what microcontrollers on that thing. There's similar ones, but fun stuff.
Yeah, there's some things I'd like to do. I think it'd be fun. I just have been noodling this around, but someday to automate like a garden, with like moisture sensors in the ground with little microcontrollers, and then actually do the irrigation and such, all automated. This way, I don't have to go out there and crank open a knob, the hose, and then turn it back off and everything else. I think that'd be cool. Probably a waste of time and a lot more expensive than the benefit I get out of it, but nonetheless, something I think about. How can I make the problem more complex?
Dude, it would probably be awesome. So I met this guy at a music festival once who used an Arduino and whatever other components to not only water his plants, but also spin them in a circle. So that way they would get light evenly on all sides.
Oh, wow.
And then he had to figure out, how do you get past the fact that when they're spinning in a circle, it's going to tangle up your wires, and got a patent on that component of it.
Huh. Can I imagine like the Ferris wheel, like at a fair or whatever? How do those lights stay on? The mystery.
I don't know.
Because the wheel is spinning.
Just spinning around, yeah.
And the lights are programmatic, so they're doing things. So there's got to be some sort of a contact through hub, some sort of a brush system, I would think. I don't know. I would think they'd flicker a lot more than some sort of matrix deal. I have no idea. It's probably different now anyway. Probably just supplies power and then could wirelessly send the flashy data, right?
Maybe they do it like Tesla, like the high voltage wirelessly deliver electricity.
Oh yeah, maybe.
That would be interesting if they actually did it that way.
Well, actually, it would be hard. I mean, you could do inductance. That's a possibility. If you think about it.
This is going to bother me. I've never thought about how the lights on a Ferris wheel stay on. This is
apparently it's.
I guarantee you, none of that stuff's happening at our local county fair with the Ferris wheel. I'm going to be hanging out at the county fair with my candied apple, and I'm going to be watching this Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel, just like.
There's going to be, maybe, I don't know, generates its own power. It's a perpetual motion machine. I have no idea.
So apparently they use slip rings that are circular rings attached to the rotating Ferris wheel with where the electrodes are attached to the opposite member. So it makes sure that it's constant contact with the rings.
Mm-hmm. Almost essentially an electrical bearing.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
So then how do they send the different programmatic color changing nonsense?
I mean, if you can make electrical contact, then.
Well, if I was going to do it, what I would do for that is put the controller on the wheel side and just power the controller.
Right.
Oh, that's good point.
Yeah.
So we get into this a little bit in my real job, my paying job, with what do you call them? Splash pads or spray grounds, sometimes people call it, where they got the fountains that run and the kids can hit a button and the toys come on and everything. We've got one that's relatively fancy setup where it uses all these controllers to run a series of 21 solenoid valves on water. And the controller just fires these solenoids off every now and then. So it does a show, kind of like the Bellagio in Vegas, but on a small scale. So it does these little water shows at night without the kids. So when the kids are there, it just runs everything. But when the kids are gone, the fountain does tricks and whatnot. And that thing was pretty cool. But the solenoids are either on or off. It allows you for flow control. So the way you do flow control is you slap a valve on a globe valve on the end that you can dial in how much water you actually want to pass through. So if you're going to do something like your irrigation and you need to kick the thing off and on, the solenoid will go all on or on off, but then you can dial it in with a little manual globe valve, which is better than a ball valve. And now I'm getting technical.
So what is the shape of this valve then? Because I know how a ball valve looks. I know how a needle valve works, but
it's real close to a ball valve.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure on the innards, but on a ball valve, a small movement will make a big change. On a globe valve, a small movement makes a small change.
Okay, so it probably has some sort of different geometry then, essentially inside.
Yeah,
there.
so you can dial in how much flow passes through the valve rather than. I mean, you can do it with a ball valve, but it might, so it takes you 15 minutes to adjust one valve and you got 20 valves. That's a big day.
Right.
The globe valve takes you a couple minutes. So much smaller day.
So now what I'm thinking is if I'm going to have a garden, I'm going to set up so it looks like a mini Bellagio firing water into the air is what you're kind of
It'd be
saying.
The wonder of the Midwest if you did that.
More like, I wonder why he did that.
Well, you can't let the Christmas light people have all the fun. You got to do it in the summertime. So
Well, my Christmas lights go all year long.
Well, there you go.
Well, all right. If you have not done the straw poll yet, be sure to knock that out. We'd love to hear from you and know your experience of MX Linux and the fun that you have with it. So, Eris, you put together the straw poll for us, and Tux Penguin got a couple votes.
Got a lot of votes. Let me refresh one last time. Number one answer was 26%. It is amazing. Number one on Distro Watch forever. 16% is the second one. It is good. 16% said Tux Penguin. 11% said it is okay. 11% said did not have enough time, busy with work, busy with life.
It happens.
5% said did not have a good time with it. 5% said not interested in this exploration. 5% said not interested in doing explorations in general, and 5% said other. I did not get any replies for the poll, so I don't know if there was any issues with that person who had a bad time or the other person.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just didn't have time to. Maybe didn't know how to hit reply. Never know. A little bit about MX Linux. How long has it been around, Dolphin?
MX has been around since 2014. It's spun off of Mepis project, which goes back. This is actually Mepis would have been 20 years old if it had survived that long.
Oh, okay.
So we've been around for a while. A lot of the current MX group have been around since the Mepis days. So it's got some life to it.
So was it just like a name change, or was it like a direction change?
Well, Mepis was private. Mepis was a company. Mepis still is a company, which is why we're not Mepis.
Oh, okay.
There's a company out there. They just quit developing a Linux distribution. The guy does other things, and we wish him well. So the community then was kind of left without a distribution, and the guys from Antics, which I was the Antics user at the time, and I kind of got involved with MX early on. We're trying to help them put together a distribution. The original MX was MX14, was 32-bit only, and originally sized up to work on an EEPC, like those old Asus guys, the little guys.
I remember those. That was like a real
yeah.
big deal, like for developing countries.
Yeah, one of these.
Oh, you still got one, just hanging out.
Oh, it still works. It's got MX23 on it right now.
Really?
Yeah, the battery life is gone long ago, but it's still, if it won't play HD movies anymore due to some changes in Mesa. It doesn't deal with HD very well anymore, but it can play DVD quality movies just fine. That's about all I use it for anymore. But so at any rate, so that was 2014, and then 2015. I can't remember if there was a 64-bit version of MX14, but in 15 there was, and from then on out, it's been every year and a half, another release. So,
so when you go to the next version, is it usually based around what Debian does? That is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. So initially we were following a model where we just made a release every year. And we tended to do it at Christmas time, and it would be over the Christmas break. We get all lined up. It took us forever to get a release tuned in back in those days. But every year we do that. It actually caused a little bit of confusion. So MX15 and MX16 were the same Debian base, whatever that was, whatever was before Buster. Jesse? I guess it's Jesse. Whatever it was. Anyway, they were that. And then 17 and 18 were the same release. But this caused confusion because some of the people in the community, well, I'm perfectly happy on 15. Why do I have to update to 16? Which they were essentially the same, but we would bump the kernels and things like that. And so to satisfy that kind of situation, because when people come to Debian stable, they expect it to be not change much, right? So we would run two repos, and this was getting confusing. It was getting confusing as heck. We'd have different things in different libraries, and it was hard for me, and it was hard for other people. So 18 was the last one we did that with an annual date. So 19, we stuck, okay, we're sticking to this. We loosened up the policy on point releases. So if we made a point release, we could make more changes than we were making in the past. But it still kind of fell on a year. So 2019. So no one actually noticed until 21, because we released 21 in 21, but people were wondering where 20 was because there was no 20. But it's just modeled. We just name it after whatever year we managed to release. Because Debian doesn't release every year. Debian releases 16 to 20 months, somewhere around in there.
Okay.
And so you get one about every year and a half ish or so. So we just release whenever it is. So it's been kind of nice. 17 was prime, 19 was prime, 21 was not quite prime, and 23 is prime. So that's kind of cool from a numbers standpoint. But so anyway, that's how we release. But now we follow whatever Debian's releases are. Internally, we even name our repo the same. So if it's, even though 23 is going to be called Libretto, internally our repo is called Bookworm, and that way we packagers, we developers, we don't get confused about which repos to call them, which repos which. It was just easier to do it that way.
Wasn't Libretto a little Toshiba PC in the 90s?
It was, and one translation of Libretto is Little Book.
Okay.
So that makes sense for that little rinky-dink Toshiba from way back when, and it makes sense this time around for us because it's based on Bookworm. We also played around with Wormhole, but some people didn't like that because they didn't know what wormholes were, or they felt like it was weird. So it's like, okay, we won't go down the wormhole, and we kept with Little Book.
Yeah, it's a good name. I mean, if nothing else, it's a callback to that. Probably one of the neatest palm top PCs of the 90s.
And when we named it, I actually forgotten about the thing. And then one of the other developers, AK, he was like, "We should get one running on Libretto." And the Libretto didn't even run the Pentium M. The Libretto ran whatever they called it before the Pentium M. So I'm not sure there is a Linux kernel that will run on it, but someone can prove me wrong.
That's one of those, when there's a will, there's a way. They crammed a stripped down version of Linux for the 8088, but it's like really, really cut. Yeah. I wouldn't call it Linux. Something similar. So the some highlights from Libretto. So it has the new Bookworm base, and that's Debian 12, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. But, XFCE 4.18, Flexbox 1.3.7, got KD Plasma 5.27, which is that the LTS?
Yeah,
it certainly is,
and that's the last one on Qt 5 as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Somehow Debian just happened to time it right to get that in there, which is pretty good.
When there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Then you have a UFW firewall is enabled by default. So why UFW? It's just 'cause it was simple?
Yeah, it's pretty easy, and we know how to operate it. There are a few of us are security professionals, but I'm not. And if maybe someday we'll switch, but we're slow to change.
Oh, that's fine.
It works.
What would you change to if you were to change it?
I have no idea. I played around with another one, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It was supposed to be application based, but I found it very difficult to use because it was I'd enable an application, but if some application used a sub application someplace, it still wouldn't pass through the firewall. So whatever. We kept GUFW. Well, UFW, I guess in this case.
I think it's nice and simple to use for sure.
The current version's got some preset profiles in it, so you can enable things like if you want Samba shares, you can configure that to let Samba through. The printer self-discovery stuff works through it by default already.
Okay.
So that stuff's working fine. So I think there's until I think beta 1, I think beta 2 is actually the first one with the firewall enabled by default. I think beta 1 still had it disabled by default. So, maybe it was alpha. Maybe it was one of the, I don't know, around in there. We just changed it not long ago. And so far, there's only been a couple hiccups with people. So I think we'll leave it enabled by default.
Yeah, I've been using Firewall D because it's default in OpenSUSE.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think that has too many options. And then also like the runtime to permanent, if you don't know how to do that, then you get all kinds of confused. No, I did initially until I really understood. I had to read the documentation on that one. Very unfortunate that I had to do that.
I like the GUFW GUI because it has a big button that says disable. So if all else fails, you just hit the button and turn it off.
Big red button.
Yeah, I think it is red actually.
Yeah, that's the one. Especially if you can't access something on your home network. I could never figure out how to get something to stick on the home network so you didn't have to disable it. It's probably just my knowledge is not up there with that.
This is the only time I ever disabled my firewall is when I'm going to play Minecraft with my kids, because I can't seem to ever get the right port because it changes the ports all the time, like whichever port you're going to play. So
Dude,
right.
The newest versions of Minecraft, actually, you can choose the port number now.
Oh.
Yep, I think maybe 1.19 that was introduced.
I didn't know that.
I was going to say to Dolphin, I noticed that you've got now in your popular packages, you come with LibreOffice installed by default, but it now has an option to install LibreOffice backport version, which is pretty handy.
Yeah.
Especially
So there are two camps in the MX group. One wants to not have to fool with packaging LibreOffice ourselves, and the other always wants the newest LibreOffice. And backports, Debian usually gets it in pretty quick in the backports. So one of our team members, Felix, wrote that little routine in MX. We call it MX Pi internally, an MX package installer.
right.
There's a little helper package installed, and we can track which one you have, and so it will flip. And if you have it localized, it'll get the localized packages too. And the two routines, you can go back, you can reverse it. It's usually hard to reverse upgrading LibreOffice in Debian, but you can reverse it there. So if you want to go back to the stable version, you click a box and it'll reverse it back.
Right, that's handy. That's super handy, because you also got Flatpaks as well. So I mean, Flatpaks, you can always get the most up-to-date version as well with Flatpaks. I'm not sure. I want to ask a question. Flatpaks. So MX Linux uses sysv init, doesn't it, to boot?
Yes.
But doesn't Flatpaks require systemd or not?
No.
I can't remember. No, it doesn't. Oh, okay.
Snap does.
Oh,
which is why we don't have Snap. Flatpak,
right.
Who knows what they'll do? Right now, the Flatpak utility runs just fine without systemd running, and yay, because it lets all of us non-systemd distros still use at least use Flatpaks. You have no option with snaps. That's why there are no.
That's where I'm getting confused.
There are no systemd free snap using distros.
So why systemd free? Is there just people in the community that just
back
don't
up.
like systemd?
We're not systemd free. Systemd is installed. And you can use it if you want to. You just can't use it on the live media. So that's the main kicker. The main kicker is that the live system that we inherited from, not really Mepis, that's really Antix land, the live USB stuff. That is set up to run with sysv init, and systemd is actually relatively unfriendly. We can't just make some configuration changes and make the live system work with systemd. We would have to substantially change major portions of the live system, the way it works, the way it mounts, all kinds of things to work with. Systemd is very particular. I'll give you an example of how particular it is. If you have a file in your Etsy folder called initrd-release, systemd will barf and not allow you to boot. Doesn't matter if you're running live or installed system, it will not boot. It will freak out. It didn't used to freak out it freaks out now. And so we had to change, that file is generated by the live system on the, we actually had to change that to score release, and it's fine. It's exactly the same file. It's just if that file exists, systemd freaks out. You get the maintenance console during boot. It's really irritating. Systemd forces the live init system to the live init to be mounted in a particular location, and ours doesn't mount there. And I've tried. I'm not the greatest in the coding department, okay, but I've tried making it mount in that location. I got it to work, but nothing else worked. I got the init to mount in the system, but the system didn't boot. So, call that a success if you want to. And I think I called it a dismal failure. You on MX, you can run a live USB without sysv on it. It's not the best. But most people, if all you wanted to do was install MX or use the snapshot stuff, or maybe even a little bit of the live persistence features, that stuff will work mostly. You're going to get a mount error when it exits, because systemd won't unmount the init from any location other than the one it knows. So it doesn't matter, and you can't tell it a different location. It's hard coded. So you're stuck with it. Anyway, so to make life easier on all of us, we just stuck with sysv init because the live system works, and I'm not willing to give up the live system right now. It works without any errors, and right now we have a guy, Kevin, who is patching systemd for us so that we can do all the cool stuff, have systemd and sysv init installed at the same time. I think we're the only people left on the planet doing it this way. So so a lot of our utilities follow because we have two init systems. A lot of our utilities, I call it either init agnostic or desktop agnostic, because everything we make, we try to make work everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that part of that is, you know what? We just like having the option. But if you're on an installed system, you can run systemd all you want. All your snaps will work. All your junk from your VPN service providers who don't give sysv init scripts, and you know who you are out there, because our people message you all the time asking you to include an init script. Half of them we've written, and you still won't include them. But whatever. I digress. Some of them we can package ourselves. We make sysv init scripts for things that are gone. For instance, Debian doesn't package a init script for Network Manager anymore. And not only that, but their post-install script will remove the init script if you have one. So we have a package that puts it back. But at least we don't have to deal with packages that actually depend on systemd, because since we ship with systemd, we actually maintain pretty strong compatibility with the Debian repo for that reason. So just about everything will work.
So what would you say, as far as like your core package lists, how much, like what percentage of the packages you ship diverges from Debian?
Not very many. We're more likely to ship a package that modifies something else from Debian, but like our systemd does. Our systemd is a little different. We take so Debian, for example, in this cycle, Debian did their freeze somewhere around February, okay, and systemd's version was pretty well locked. Now it has updated since then, but the major version was pretty well locked back in February. So our guy patched our systemd shim package. Actually, the shim package was fine. He patched systemd to work with our shim so we could have both installed at the same time, and we just maintain that through the Debian release. If there's a security fix that comes down, we'll bump it again with the security fix. So that's one. Most people don't notice, but it is fine. After that, we're mostly pretty close. Sometimes we'll backport packages from SID or testing into our stable repos, just to do it, because the libraries don't matter much if you can backport them. The longer a Debian is stable, is on the market, so to speak, the harder that gets. Okay, because people move on with what minimum library they're supporting for one thing or another. But when you're this close to a release, almost everything works. So we're pretty close. I mean, our packages don't divert much. Antics has to do more work because the Antics distribution is systemd free, so they patch all kinds of things. They've got they're fighting with Pipewire at the moment because Pipewire gets started by systemd user services. Okay, so these are services the systemd starts up after you log in. It's SysViaNet doesn't have the concept of a systemd of a user service, so you got to start things manually that way. But I don't know, we're pretty close. MX is pretty close, and the systemd shim system lets us stay pretty close.
Gotcha.
So in the last stable release, Wildflower, you backported 418, right, to MX. How difficult was that versus the stable Debian version of 416?
Well, I'm not the packager, but I don't think it was too tough. XFCE has the wonderful philosophy of basing their libraries, their minimum C and GTK and libraries like that, on, I think, on whatever the oldest Ubuntu LTS is. It's still, in fact, so right now that's probably still 18. So not hard to keep it up. So it's not like GNOME, right? So GNOME, every time GNOME releases, there's a new GTK and all heck breaks loose because you can't backport it to Debian and all this stuff. XFE doesn't have that problem. The libraries are usually old enough that whatever the latest Debian stable is, probably it has all the libraries already, if not a version ahead. So XFCE, not hard. Now, ask me about KDE Plasma. KDE Plasma, amazingly difficult because of the Qt libraries. Because every time Plasma updates, they tend to roll whatever their minimum version of Qt is required, and that does kind of hose things up a little bit.
Because the libraries aren't in the Debian repos?
Yeah, Plasma moves faster than Debian stable. XFCE doesn't. That's the main kicker to it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense. I think I was listening to I'm gonna say Linux Unplugged. They're talking about how Plasma is a good experience on rolling distributions because of how quickly Plasma is moving forward. So that's probably pretty fair.
You get it faster, that's for sure. The first Plasma release we did was for MX19. I forget the version of Plasma that was, but it was not good. Okay, it was full of bugs. I mean, some we could take care of, but some were just built into Plasma, and it was really not the greatest. The version that's in Bullseye and MX21 is a lot better, but it still has some hiccups to it. Discover is the main hiccup, I think, is like if you're doing an update in the background and the update asks you, hey, do you want to keep this file? The user never gets that prompt. It just quits running the update. It's not the best experience. 23, the Plasma 23 is the latest because Debian got it in right before they're free. I swear they were waiting for Plasma 27.5 before they did their final freeze, because it was like the week before or something. Anyway, they got it in, and that seems to be a lot better. But this is going to be the last one that's on Qt 5. So, and Debian's already transitioning to Qt 6 for a lot of things. So, and Plasma guys are starting their Qt 6 transition. So the next version may be a little bumpy again, because every time we bump a major version on Plasma, it gets bumpy for a while. I don't know, maybe it'll be better this time. Hope so.
I read that it shouldn't be so bumpy this time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see, I guess.
That had me wondering if Kubuntu is going to keep the LTS for the next LTS, the KDE LTS for the next LTS, or are they go with Plasma 6? But who knows about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Seems like you'd want to be a little bit more leaning forward, I would say, for the LTS, because it's gonna get stagnant, toward the end of its existence. So I would think you want to lean it as far forward as you can. But what do I know? I don't know anything. So as far as the installation experience, for me personally, I noticed it was a lot faster than previous versions. Did you do something to change that, or because it seemed like the installation, like, so by the time I finished putting in, and maybe just a faster computer, I don't know, but by the time I finished putting in my username, password, and went through all those options, like when it started the install, it was done waiting for me before I got through that.
Yeah. So AK and is our primary developer on the installer at the moment, and he is kind of a wizard. And I don't know how he squeezes more life out of that thing, but he does. And I had the same experience with you. Now, part of that is I do have a new machine this go around, and I know if I'm installing a VirtualBox on an ext4 file system, that if I walk into the kitchen and come right back, it'll be done, and I haven't entered my username yet. So it's pretty fast. It's a little slower if you're doing BTRFS unencrypted on a Lux. That's a little slower, I've noticed. I don't know why it's slower, but it was. Yeah, it's pretty fast, and it does a lot of things while it's asking you for information, so you don't have to wait. It starts doing the file copy, and then asks you for your username and password and how you like your clock and all that kind of user stuff.
24-hour.
You're a sick man, Nate.
It's so much easier.
You probably like single click too.
Nope, I'm a double click guy.
Okay, well, you're only half sick.
Anybody else here have any issues whatsoever installing MX?
No, it went fine for me. Actually, I noticed the increase in speed as well, to be honest, when I installed it. Only on VirtualBox though, but still, it's a consistent playground for checking out distros, and definitely I noticed the difference in installing in the speed for sure.
Did anybody try the custom partitions mode?
Yeah.
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, you got the what is it? The right click, and so if you select your partition and you right click on it, you got I think it's called Layout Builder.
Yeah, it's relatively new.
So
that's brand new, actually. They rolled that out. We rolled that in right before. So did you try that? Did it work okay for you?
I tried that. Yeah, actually, I installed it twice using that because I've done a few installs. Because I like to go back to the installer and play around with the installer, because I just love doing that sort of thing. But I didn't realize the first time it was there, and then I did something that I don't normally do. I read the information on the side.
There's a lot in that sidebar. There's a ton in that sidebar.
And I Layout Builder caught my eye, and then I went back and right clicked, and there was a few options there. So because I was clicking the buttons on the far right hand side, and then I realized you could just right click, and yeah, that was quite handy because it just does everything for you, and then it asks you if you want a swap file.
Yep.
And then once you move on from that, you still got the options of checking that swap file off if you've changed your mind. I've noticed it looked that way anyway.
Yeah. It sets you up it sets you up that template, and then you can still change the template around if you want to.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also you can select if you want what's it called, when your computer switches off.
The hibernation support, yeah.
Hibernation support, yep.
So what we do is it sets up a small quote unquote small swap file for if you don't want to worry with hibernation. But if you want to have hibernation, then we say, okay, well, swell that sucker up so that it's big enough for whatever RAM you have. Because most people, even if they want swap, they probably don't want 16 or 32 or 64 gigs of swap, even if they have that much RAM. So we get that. That's what that option does. Technically, Hibernate will still work, but the swap file won't necessarily be big enough for whatever you got going on.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So
I think there was another option that. Sorry,
I'm just curious. Is the swap file something that's fixed in size that takes up amount of disk space, or is it dynamically adjusting?
No, it's a fixed size.
Gotcha.
You can change it later, but we don't have a tool to do that at the moment. Right now, it's created at a fixed size.
Okay. So then,
There's 3 options. I can't remember what the third option was. There was swap file, hibernation, and something else. I can't
I think we have
remember what that
encryption
was.
on it, I think, too, but I don't
Yeah, there was encryption. Yeah,
I don't
that was
remember that.
somewhere else.
I'd have to look at the dialogue again to see exactly what's on it.
so Ben says he has some words on the installation process himself. So,
Hi guys.
how you doing, Ben? It's been a long
Hey,
time.
Ben.
Where have you been, Ben?
I was on a long darn hiatus. My laptop has been acting weird. I had to take it into the shop today to get fixed. But before that,
You try installing Linux? That usually fixes my laptop.
oh, dear God. Well, anyway, long story short, I don't have my main gaming laptop tonight, so I'm stuck on my tower, and this old clunky Core 2 quad machine
Ooh.
next to me, or Core 2 Duo, or whatever it is, Haswell machine next to me building Linux from scratch right now, and it's hella slow because it's a dual core Haswell, and it's gonna take a long time. Anywho,
Was Haswell
yeah,
4th generation?
it's a Haswell 4th gen. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
misspoke about the processor, but anyway. So I tried MX before taking in my laptop last night, kind of late to the game, but anyway, it has an AMD APU and a discrete RTX 2060, and it's a Mux switch laptop. So not one of those. Thank God it's not one of those god awful Optimus setups. Thank the Lord. But anyway, so yeah, installation went fine. Picked the XFCE ISO as I always do, because you guys know me and XFCE. So yeah, that was went perfectly fine, very fast, which I was thankfully impressed with. Thanks to the devs about that. And stock look was very good. I didn't have any complaints. Now, Dolphin, quick question: is the I don't know if you guys kept this or not, but did you leave the XFCE sidebar intact, or did you move it to the bottom?
Nope, it's vertical.
Okay, I thought so, because I've always noticed that about your XFCE spin, and I have to say, personally, I like the bar on the bottom, so that's one change that I just had to make. I'm a guy who likes either it on the top or the bottom, personally.
Yep. That is the very first thing we added in the MX tweak tool, was flipping. It was originally called MX panel orientation, was an amazingly lame name. Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, man. Yeah.
But all it did was take the panel from the side and put it on the bottom, because if you probably noticed, if you do it with the XFCE tool, all the plugins are in the wrong order.
Yes.
So yeah, so the MX tool flips it and does some math and reverses the plugins where needed and rearranges the bar.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I always had bad luck with was installing the NVIDIA driver, especially on my old Dell 7567. It was one of the machines that had the Intel and the NVIDIA hybrid.
Mhm.
And that one was which I no longer have this machine, but because it had a BIOS brick, but I noticed that the NVIDIA tool always had a bug where it would auto find the right NVIDIA driver, but it would, when I had a hybrid setup, it would always like crash and not work properly. And I don't know if that's been fixed or not, but that's just something I felt I'd let you know about, because I don't know if in this updated version, if they fixed that. But when I get my laptop back, I'll give it another shot. But I don't know.
No, I have 2 Optimus machines that are working fine.
Well, I will definitely try it on
the main
laptop when I get it back.
There have been a lot of changes in the way we install NVIDIA drivers, depending on the age of the Xorg that's in use, and also the age of the NVIDIA driver that's being selected. You can sometimes you don't have to install Bumblebee anymore.
Oh, thank God!
And
I want to say that my game,
life a lot
when I run them through Steam or Wine and Bumblebee, they would just not work.
No, it's
Well,
really
whatever,
irritating. It's Bumblebee running stuff with Bumblebee and Steam is kind of irritating, and it's kind of irritating with the current NVIDIA driver setup, but it does work. I just put in a couple environment variables in your Steam settings, and the game starts with the graphics accelerator.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look into that, because I tell you, I have an RTX 2060 in the laptop I'm getting back from the store soon, because I just took it in today. And I'm hoping that, this new MX tool will help with that, because I will definitely try it and on a clean install when I get it back, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, I have an RTX 3050 in the machine I'm using right now,
Yeah.
and it works reasonably well.
And what NVIDIA driver did you select? Because I tried my old laptop I'm talking about had a 1050 in it, and that is a really old card. Yeah, so
Yeah, I don't know what the 1050 would use.
but the
I know there were some
2060
people
I've
in the
got,
forum that have issues with the 1050 for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
I'm using the 520. Is it 525 drivers right now?
Yeah, that's what I was using on StormOS with Arch, and I didn't have any problems. Now there is an option in my BIOS to disable the APU and turn on just the NVIDIA, but I mean, I'd rather have the switching, because running just the NVIDIA is really horrible with battery life and
Oh yeah,
whatnot.
battery life will stink. Yeah, I'm using 525.105 right now.
Yeah, well, I'll try it on your distro when I get it back, and I'll report to you how it goes.
The one thing I did so is essentially you mentioned the NVIDIA tool. Now our friend Zeb, right? So Zeb,
You mean
always,
Zebedee Boss, right?
I do. He always finds something wrong with the NVIDIA setup. I don't know how he manages this. Probably because he's a professional tester from a past life, but
It's actually superpower. So he's actually.
it must be.
Yeah, he's actually.
Yeah.
He is a superhero.
So
He
this
also usually
time,
runs bleeding edge hardware.
well, and the hardware is what got us this time. Now, there's nothing wrong with the install routine. So what the thing does is first it checks and makes sure that you have an NVIDIA part. And if it does, then it compares the PCID of the part to a list of PCIDs supplied by NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And it finds the part, and through that list, it determines which driver you're allowed to use. And now we actually we used to only show you whichever the highest level driver was. So we show you that one, and that's what you're going to install. Now we still offer to install that one, but now we show you all the drivers that work, and a command you can use to force whichever one you want to install. So you could install like the Tesla 470 drivers if you really wanted to. Anyway, so he says, well, it's not finding my card, but it's also not telling me that I don't have an NVIDIA card. And I'm looking through this stuff, and he's got a PCID on his card that is not in NVIDIA's lists.
What the heck?
Which is exactly what I said. Well, in a somewhat less family-friendly manner. But
Oh god.
so I'm going through these lists. I'm like, well, maybe it's the list we got from Debian. We get some packages from Debian for the list. So maybe it's Debian. No, it's not in the list that NVIDIA published. So I said, okay, fine, whatever. So and Zeb saw the instructions, and he knew how to force his driver to install. But so we wrote a little question in. It's like, well, okay, if your part's not old and it's an NVIDIA, but we can't find the PCID, then we're going to offer to install you the latest driver anyway, if that's what you want to do. And this is the first part I've ever found we've seen where it can't find it. And it's because it's not in the PCID list, and it's like one digit off from another
crazy.
So and he's got a fairly high end part as he would, and I forget the number on it, but it's an RTX,
it's one of the more modern ones.
70 million or something. I don't know, but it's brand new, hot off the shelf, and of course the idea, maybe the idea will leak in as it comes, and if it ever does, I don't have to do anything. It'll find it then. But the right now,
so we had to do the NVIDIA manually, I'm assuming.
Well, the tool will let you install the driver if you know the driver to use. So it's
Well, luckily he got it working in the long run, but regardless, I know you had a Compass tutorial like way back in the day, and I know Compass is like a dying project, but I I don't know if that still is available on
A
MX,
what?
but I was asking if Compass is still available from you guys or not.
Comp biz. I don't think we have it at the moment. We might.
Okay.
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Well, if you do or could implement it, that would be great because I tried it on Arch and the only thing that did not work is the cube. I don't know what the heck is wrong with it, but every time I go to switch a desktop or flip the cube around, it would break and I would have to reload the XFCE panel. It was just a big pain in the butt. And I don't know if it's broken on Debian distros or not, but for some reason the cube is just broken and it was really frustrating.
It is still available in the Debian repository, but we don't have it in our popular apps area anymore because
Okay.
it causes people a lot of problems.
Okay, well, I know Kwin, last time I looked at it, was a better option. The only thing is that to get the cube back, you have to add a third-party repo to do it. And that was kind of why I preferred Compass, because I always have it pre-installed. So, yeah, that's just something I want to bring to your attention because I know, you had this really old as heck Compass video way back on your channel. And I don't know if the steps would still apply, but it was just something I wanted to bring to your attention because on Arch, like I said, it's massively broken.
I want to say our art director Asquith has installed it, and I think she had it running fine, but we had enough users who were
Complaining.
Yeah, because there was a time period there where it was really bad, and I know it's getting old in the tooth, so I don't know if it's going to get better or not.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'll try it on my machine when I get it back again, and I'll report to you or somebody in the forums and let you know how it goes. Because I mean, Compass is one of my favorite things about Linux, and for example, when I bring my computer to like my relatives in Iowa or something like that, they're like, "Holy cow, Ben, that's cool!" So yeah, I would hate to lose that ability on my computer. So. But yeah, that's just some of the things I wanted to bring up was the fact that, there were still some things that I wasn't sure about.
No, thank you.
No worries.
I had a question about the installer. I know that Debian has this quirk, or maybe it's a feature, depending on how you look at it. How if you don't put a root password, it makes a sudo account. I mean, it makes your account sudo, so you can get sudo privileges. And then some people put in the root account and they don't get sudo, and then it's sometimes it's a quirk or sometimes it's a feature. Has this always been a feature for MX that there's a checkbox to make a root account or not to give the root account a password for the installer?
We rolled that out at some point during the MX21 series. Unlike a lot of stable distributions, we still work on stuff, and we'll roll things out as we go along. Yeah, that the installer is one of them. It probably got 6 or 7 updates, but during the 27 series that we released. So what happens is if you don't set up a root account, you don't have to. If you don't set up a root account, then the root account is still there. And a lot of people don't understand that the root account is still there. It never really goes away, but it's locked. It doesn't have a password. And we lock it so you can't. Just deleting the password just gives root with no password, which is terrible. So we lock it. Now it's good and bad to do this. A lot of people don't want to have the root accounts. Like, fine, whatever, I don't care. But if you ever, let's say you're booting and you get into one of those emergency consoles and it tells you hit control something or other to log in as root. If you don't set up that root password, you ain't logging in. So just be aware of that. But I don't set one up anymore. I just sudo everything. But there's a difference. Don't confuse something Debian's installer does with what we do. By default, all of our users are members of the sudo group. Okay. If you set up a root account, your user's still a member of the sudo group. We don't change that. You can change it yourself in the user manager if you want to. And if you want to make new users for the rest of your family, for instance, and you don't want them to have sudo, so when you go into our user manager and create a new user, there's a box saying, I can't remember if it says don't make me a system administrator or make me a system. I forget which way it is, but whichever it is, that box controls whether the new user gets added to the sudo group or not. Okay. So you can kind of have it both ways. So a lot of people wanted to say, oh, I want the root account. Okay, fine, you can have the root account. But then a lot of people was like, well, if you said, I want a root account, but I also want my first user to be sudo. Like, okay, we can do that too. But now I don't want anybody else to be sudo. Okay, use the user setup tool, and you don't have to. You can check a box at creation. They won't be part of the sudo group. You can also go have fun and modify some login default files in the etc folder and make it so no user ever gets added to sudo unless you do it deliberately. But I think this is easier. And for our target market, it's a good fit, I think.
There's a little checkbox there. Grant this user administrative rights to the system.
Yeah. So if you check that box, then the new user is created in the sudo group with the sudo group as a member of the sudo group. I think we check that by default, if I remember right, but I might be.
Yeah, it is checked by default. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Because if you just use the Debian, if you just use the standard Linux add user command, the user is going to be part of the sudo group because that's our default.
Anybody else want to say like their installation process that maybe hasn't had a chance yet to say anything? Rick?
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. We sound great.
Okay, good. Yeah, the process I used was, well, as everybody knows, on the Linux Saloon, I probably have had about 1.5 years or 2 years of MX Linux on my daily driver. It's a pretty simple machine, actually. It's framework, but it doesn't have any NVIDIA drivers or nothing like that in it. But I have a Legion out in the family room that has an NVIDIA driver, dedicated NVIDIA driver in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Archcraft, I had Archcraft installed on it, and it was working all right until suddenly Zoom stopped working. I don't know why it stopped working. I probably needed to update or something. But I said, well, it's a good opportunity to see how MX Linux does with the NVIDIA drivers. So I installed it on there, and it worked pretty smoothly. I installed it, used a MX Linux tool to install the NVIDIA driver. Went spiffy, I guess. And it went real well, I thought. So, yeah, I'm sure you're happy to hear about that. The Linux driver works.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, and I'm going to use your "it's spiffy" as my new commentary. I'm adding it right to the description of the package right now. A spiffy tool for installing NVIDIA drivers. I love it.
Anybody else? Mark, I don't know if you installed MX Linux and how that went for you or not. If you wanna.
I didn't get a chance this time.
That's all right. That's all right. I won't hold it against you for more than a week or two.
I just wanted to ask Dolphin one thing. The installer, when you get to the manual partition, what is it with the blurred lines? Look, is that purposely done? Those blurred. It looks like it's out of focus or something.
So they're So they're dash dotted lines. Okay, and what it is, if you look, the boxes that have drop downs or that are selected are solid, and the other lines are dashed. And a lot of people have commentary on the way that screen looks, and honestly, sometimes I think it's an effect of what your monitor looks like. It looks fantastic on my monitor. It doesn't look bad at all. But on my other machine with the 1366 by 768 screen, they look a little blurry. And,
right.
But what it is, if you have things that are selected, those get like solid boxes around them. So there's a little bit more of a distinction. Originally, it was an idea to say, okay, we're gonna differentiate what a user can click on versus what's just information. And
that's fair.
That worked for a while, but it really confused the heck out of people. So you notice now the boxes that have drop downs have this little triangle thing.
Yep.
So we we added that because that's not a default thing. Those aren't those little once you click on a box, it becomes a combo box and you can choose things
Yes.
out of it. But until you click on it, it's not. It's just a drawn image. So we got these
Yes.
little triangle doohickeys so you indicate what you can click on. So usability has increased quite a bit, but the partitioning or the partition tool is kind of the brainchild of, is really the first thing AK worked on in the installer, and it's both a work of art and genius and sometimes frustrating because it doesn't work like other people's thing. But if you use it once or twice, you get the hang of it pretty quick. And you can still, you probably notice in the if you don't want to deal with our partitioner, if you're doing partitions, that is fine. There's still a button right there in the partition screen to fire up gparted, and you can do whatever you want. It will work fine. There's no magic involved. You can do it ahead of time. You can do it on the flow. You can call up gparted from inside the screen. You can do with the template thing. You can do whatever you want. The one thing that is easier inside our template is if you do a BTRFS, a ButterFS partition, you do a right click on that and you can add you can add your sub volumes. So you can do @ for root and @ home for home.
Oh,
And
okay, yeah.
this will mostly keep Timeshift happy when you're using Timeshift.
So,
but as always, I have to, sorry, Nate, I just wanted to mention that the information that comes along with MX Linux is just probably second to none, I'd have to think, because it's got everything required. Even if I'm unsure, I'll just have a quick read and you get, you know what you're doing because it's all written there. The documentation is just superb.
We are very happy this time. I do a lot of the help files for the MX tools. AK is starting to write a couple of help files. Jerry does the manual, but Jerry's got a team now helping him with the FAQ and the manual. So they're making a bunch of updates now. So this is very good to hear that the documentation is useful because we do spend a lot of time on it. And for even when you have minor changes, there's a surprising amount in the manual that has to get updated. And, it's just, they're doing a good job with it.
But it rolls along with you during the install. It's always there on the side.
So that sidebar, it changes as you go. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And you can even click, if you get really crazy, if you really get nerdy, you can click on the live log tab.
Yes.
And you can watch the commands blow by as
absolutely,
as it goes. So it's got a little something for everybody.
So Ron Singh, who he might be our resident tinfoil hatter, he says he likes not having a user be part of the sudo group. It's his experience that it lowers the chance of malware, and I don't know if that's the case at all. But I
have no idea. But you know what? People can set up their users however they want. It's just hunky dory.
So I wonder. I know, Brian, if you are much in the cybersecurity area, but do you know of any malware that would take advantage of a user being part of the sudo group?
Not off the top of my head, but I could see if you have it set up so you don't need to enter a password or anything. That's kind of a big deal because you could just. I've gained access to a VNC session. This was on a Raspberry Pi, so instantly I knew that the Pi user was going to be in the sudo group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get root on the Raspberry Pi in like 5 minutes. I mean, if that.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Yeah, you said you can set up any way you want. I don't know, it's something I think about, a little bit. And I think Ron brought that up, and I thought that was interesting. But I don't know if anybody had heard of an exploit just being part of the sudo group. You still have to get the password. So I don't know how that would be done necessarily.
There has been vulnerabilities for sudo, the program itself.
Okay.
In the past.
Anything current? Have you heard?
Anything current? I don't know. So like I said, some people have a philosophy that if you install sudo, you're opening yourself up to more vulnerabilities because you can just use your root account. You will always have the root account installed, so any vulnerabilities will always be there because of that. Now, if you add sudo, you're adding more complexity and sudo being a big program, some people think it exposes you to more vulnerabilities. So for some systems, there is no sudo by default, and they want you to use the root account.
Right.
Now, there's also some other people who say don't use sudo, use this program called doas, which comes from BSD, I think, and it's much smaller because sudo itself is much bigger program. So the thinking there is a smaller program will have less bugs, less vulnerabilities possibility, and the problem with using the root account, just to make it even more complicated, is that if you use the root account, anybody who tries to log into the system will already know that the root account exists, right? So if you're trying to log into a system you don't know, you got to find out the username and then find out the password. But if the root account is open, they can just log in, because I mean they can just try to brute force the root account because it is open, it has a password, versus if the root account is locked down, then they would have to go through one of the users. What's the username? Who knows? So there's a little bit of more safety that way. But of course, it's a trade-off and different philosophies of security.
I think the way I have it set up on my machine, you can't log into it directly as root. You have to log in as a root user, and then you can escalate to root, but you can't directly go into the root account. That's how I have it set up. You can set all those different kind of flags on there, but I don't know what the right answer is.
Not to change the subject completely, but I'm going to apologize because I just realized that I was using the wrong microphone, and you guys heard me shout at my dog.
It's all right. I was amused by that.
Yeah.
She was very happy to chase a car out there or something or other, walking past the house, and she was really loud, and I did not realize that I was using the laptop's mic instead of my Yeti. So I'm sorry
right.
about that. I mean, I very deliberately muted the Yeti and didn't realize it was the wrong mics. But I saw Nate wince when I yelled, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Right, I
couldn't hear the dog anyway.
Yeah,
I couldn't hear any dog.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I didn't. I knew it was your dog. My dog's been making noise too. I've just gotten lucky so far.
So the desktop environment experience, how is that going for people? Wolfnick, feel free to chime in anytime. Or Wolfnick.
I'm just sitting here quiet. I'm afraid I didn't get a chance to check out MX Linux.
Oh, that's all right.
I have used it in the past and I did really like it, but it was long enough ago. I don't think it'd be relevant.
So I got something, I guess.
Yeah, fire away.
I thought it was cool that Genie is included. I don't know how common Genie is out in the wild, really, but I've probably written 100,000 lines of code using Genie. So it's super cool. It would be even cooler if the theming or I don't know what to call it, the skin on it or something looked right. Something is wrong, and it's super ugly looking, and it doesn't have any of the presets installed. So you can actually change, dark mode, for example. It would just be cool. I also liked that it came with something from Conky on the desktop. I'm not super familiar with really any way of making my computers look nice. So it was neat to see, and I think I'm going to dig into that further just so I can see how some of that's set up and see if I want to integrate that in the future.
The Conkies, the people are either for them or against them. There's really not much in the way of middle ground, and we've got there's the Conky manager, which lets you pick different ones. So that's in there, and we can't just have like one. We have to have like 50. So there's a bunch. You can check little boxes and turn them off and on. You can have multiples on. You can, all sorts of things. Some of them stack, so you get like, okay, here's a little bit of system info. Now here's a whole bunch of system info.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fun to be had in there.
Right. Honestly. Oh, sorry.
And then there's the MX Conky editor. All of our Conkies are set up so that they can be customized color-wise, font-wise, other different things that can be customized in the Conky in our MX Conky editor. So you don't even have to really know much. You can change a few things just for the tools that are there.
I honestly probably spent most of my time playing with that. I was like, dude, this is how people make those screenshots. I had no idea. And I'm sure that's something people learn early on. I just skipped over that step or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I usually turn mine off, and so one of the first things we wrote after we put made Conky default was a Conky toggle. It's right in the menu, and you just hit the Conky toggle in the menu, and it will turn off the Conky. And if you hit it again, it brings it back. So I don't know. Is this something?
Right. Like I'll probably play with it again for another 2 hours and be like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
You know, and then
It
never
is
touch
cool.
it again.
It is cool.
I also thought that the bash editor was cool. I've never really taken a lot of time to customize how my terminal looks, and just being able to click a bunch of things and be like, okay. I've seen screenshots where people do this stuff. Never looked into how to do it. I mean, I know you can edit your bash RC file, but I just never saw a need for it, I guess.
Yeah, that thing's a weird little tool, but I like it too. And it's actually written. It was written. He's still a youth, I guess. And he's one of the few MX developers I've met in real life. We met up at Ohio Linux Fest one year, and it was pretty cool meeting him and his dad. Because he came in, he's written a couple other things. He's done some of the stuff at MX Tweak where we save theme sets and things back and forth too. But that tool was just kind of his first from scratch kind of deal for us. And yeah, it's just a weird little guy. I mean, it's weird. Customize your text, your terminal prompt with a GUI app. It's just kind of strange, but I don't know. It makes me happy when people like the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've always been a group that has, if we have an itch, we scratch it, and
that's good.
That was one for him, and it works well. So okay.
Yeah, I like the fact that you still keep the menu bar on the left, because it's very to me it's very uniquely MX. I think you're the only ones that do that at this time.
We're certainly the only ones that have it vertical and have the menu still at the bottom.
Right.
That's a little weird, but what it is the menu is in exactly the same place, whether the bar is vertical or horizontal.
Right.
So
I think that's
I can't use it any other way. I have tried putting the thing vertical, horizontal. I thought about making a proposal to make it horizontal by default, and I just can't do it. It went back vertical immediately. I've gotten so used to it now. I can't. I mean, anybody that's waiting for that to happen, you guys are going to have to team up and vote me out, because it's probably going to stay vertical for a while.
I think Chaos or KOS, I forget how it's pronounced.
Chaos,
correctly.
yeah.
They have a right panel vertical.
Yep.
And do they have the menu on the bottom though, or on the top?
No, I think it's probably at the top.
That's how Unity was at the top.
Yeah.
Because it still is. Not it was.
But we had ours at the bottom before Unity put theirs on top. I'm just saying.
One of the things I appreciated, which I've mentioned in the forums before, is that you press down on the window key, brings up the menu, whisker menu.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of generally XFCE, when you add in like super Q, close windows, or super whatever, it doesn't work unless I do some configuration with it, download Escape, remap it to super D for the menu, and then I can do that. But MX Linux is one of the few that I've encountered that actually comes out of the box that way, where I can do super Q, super whatever key buttons want, they all work.
I've come to really love using the super button for all sorts of things, because no application uses super in its internal menus. They'll use control and they'll use alt. They'll even use function keys, but they don't use super key. So if you can map things for the window manager or the desktop with the super key, you're not going to conflict with anything. And this is very nice. So, I've got my file manager, by default, I think MX ships with the file manager on super E. I don't know. There's a bunch of them that are set up on super now.
Right.
But yeah, we couldn't do that until we got the fact that you needed to be able to use the menu with the super key as well. I wasn't willing to give that up.
Another thing I've always found in using super key is that if I have a Alt or Super key that goes to F4, F3, F1, the function keys. It on some of my computers, like the framework laptop, it's got where you have to push down to activate that. Then I have to push down the function key plus Alt and then F4, close the window. So I've used two hands to do it, whereas I can just use one hand to do it with F Super Q.
Are you sure you can't, like, I don't have a framework yet, still waiting, but on my EliteBook, the top row, which is function keys, is also like media keys. If I hit Control or Alt, it automatically goes to being the function key number as opposed to whatever the media key is.
Yeah, I know some of them you can switch it in the firmware, system firmware, stuff like that. Or there may be a way where you can do that, but anyway, I just I prefer to shift all my well-used keys, like close a window, to Super Q, because one, I got used to that when I used Awesome. Which actually I got Awesome installed on MX Linux right now. So, but yeah,
well, that's
so
awesome.
Yeah, it is. So I got all the stuff on here, and yeah. So, but I have the same situation on some other computers I use frequently too.
Well, I want to hit some things to highlight that I think are really cool. So, your application installer, it's very basic, and I think it's the most efficient one. Like, it actually loads things like immediately. So if I do like a Flatpak, like if I want to install a Flatpak and I want to do it on Discover, I have to wait. If I want to install a Flatpak on MX, it's basically immediate. Like there's not all this like weirdness that Discover has to go like to the moon and back and maybe stop at Mars, before it continues. And also GNOME software's that way now too. I don't know why GNOME software is so slow too. At least that was my last experience with it.
You could say it's the power of text, because all the other ones that like have pictures and all the
That's
other
true.
graphics.
So anyway, I want to say I really like that. Also, though, I think that because it is all text, I think you maybe you lose something. I don't know, because you don't have the little picture icon. But I really appreciate the speed of that. That's something I really like, is the absolute just sheer speed.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why it is the way it is. We wanted a GUI to install a bunch of stuff, but we didn't want to reinvent Synaptic or GNOME software or anything like that. So it's kind of its own deal. And the tab interface came along because, okay, we have originally the only thing that was in there was what we now call popular applications. Okay, so and that thing is got superpowers. Okay, so it can run some of the packages that are in there just come out of the regular repos, either ours or Debian's or whatever. Some of them, like Colin noticed with LibreOffice backports, will actually do some stuff like switch repos around and install from certain things. Some of them, like what's a good one? Chrome is a good one. Chrome will enable the Google Chrome repo and then do an app update and then install Chrome from the Google repo. We do that with the Microsoft repos too. For whatever the Microsoft ones we have, our code, and I can't remember if Edge is in there or not, but whatever. There's a couple of Microsoft ones. But there's a few like Zoom. I don't know. Maybe it's been a while since I checked Zoom. Maybe Zoom has a repo now. I don't know, but I doubt it. So Zoom, it just downloads whatever the latest Zoom is and installs it for you. Okay.
You have Edge in there, by the way.
What's that?
Edge is in there.
Edge is in there. Okay, I couldn't remember. So I think I wrote the routine for it. I still couldn't remember. So and we do that with a lot of packages. XNView is another one. It's an image viewer that people seem to like, and it doesn't have a repo either, so it just downloads it and installs it. But everything in there, nothing in there is not installed through the regular package manager. So if you install it that way, no matter where it comes from, you can remove it or do whatever you need to through any of the other package managers. So if you use Synaptic or apt from the command line, or Nala if you're a Nala guy, or anything like that, then all that stuff works. for removing or anything. Now, if they don't have a repo, then you're not getting any updates. Okay, but so if you need to update, like for Zoom, if you need to update Zoom again, then every now and then you go into popular apps and you check the box for Zoom and you install the Zoom. You hit the reinstall button and it downloads the new whatever the latest deb is and reinstalls it. It's the best we can do if it's not in the repo.
That's nice. I didn't realize you could do that. Just go back and click that and reinstall.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't know
button
that.
the
Yeah,
button that
that's
says
handy.
install, if it's installed already, actually becomes reinstall, and it just downloads it again
Right.
and reinstalls it.
That's handy.
Some of the VPN things are really complicated. Our man Felix takes care of a lot of those because he's like a master of manipulating things that only support systemd and making them work on sysv. So there's a lot of that. He's also our grub guru. The guy knows more about grub, I swear, than the grub people know about grub. The guy's a genius. But at any rate, so that popular apps has got a lot going for it. And not everything in there is a popular app. Okay, there's going to be some things in there you'd never heard of, but it's things that maybe deserve. Maybe there's been a request, or maybe we think it just deserves a little discoverability. We actually throw the Oz kernels get thrown in there too, so you can update Oz kernels. Oz kernels don't auto update, so you got to update them manually as you go for reasons. So then you got the stable repo tab, or I think we call it enabled repos now, because stable wasn't really right. Because enabled repos is anything that's enabled all the time, it's going to show up there, just like Synaptic or GNOME Software Discover, whatever. Then you got the test repo tab, which is where most of our backports actually end up. So we talked about, Debian backports. So test is our backports repo, and it's not the same as Debian testing. I think that says that in my signature on the forum. Test repo is not the same as Debian testing. This is not the next version of MX Linux. This is junk that we're backporting back to the current version of MX, that we typically pull them from like SID or sometimes Debian testing, and we backport them to work with the libraries that are on the current Debian stable. Basically doing the same kind of thing Debian backports does, but in our own repo, and it's usually different apps. And then this backports is kind of the same deal. Test and backports, they're not enabled all the time, but you can still browse them. That's because we are tricky. And so when you install from those tabs, those repos get enabled. Whatever you asked for gets installed. And then the repos get disabled again. This avoids issues where people fool with their settings and can somehow manage to make their system update you're not supposed to be able to update from Debian test, from Debian backports, or from MX test, unless you've already installed an app from those things. But we've had people who can, and they do, and they inevitably break something. So this thing turns off and on as needed. That's cool. So the Flatpak tab became its own thing, because back when Flatpaks and everything were first coming on the scene, there was a lot of people going, why do I know when I'm installing a Flatpak and when I'm installing a Snap? You probably remember this from the Ubuntu store days, right? Where I forget what it was. Chromium became a Snap and everybody was mad about it. Well, you're never going to not, in MX Package Installer, you're never going to accidentally install a package format that you don't want. You're either going to get apt in all the other apt and deb and whatever in all the other packages, or you're going to get a Flatpak from the Flatpak tab, and there is no confusion. If you go on the Flatpak tab, you're getting a Flatpak.
Yeah.
As our art director Asquith, she asked for it. She lobbied for the thing for a long time to add Flatpaks. We resisted for a long time, but we all learned that we can't resist her for very long, and so Adrian added it, and he's done a great job with it. And it is fast. Reasonably fast, mostly because it's not pulling all that app data. It's doing very little with the data, and it's not. And you're right, it's not downloading a bunch of graphics. It's basically getting whatever you can get from the Flatpak command line interface is what it's using.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, it's fast. It's popular. We like it, and sometimes on the app side, sometimes it's the info boxes. If you click on them, sometimes there's a screenshot, sometimes there's not. But they're not the best screenshots. I ain't gonna lie, they're terrible because I had to hunt them down. So
I also like the fact
asking in the forum about auto updating Flatpaks. We get asked that one all the time. The best I'm going to tell you is it's an issue of contention, and the best we got is the update Flatpaks button in MX Package Installer. because that'll update all of them simultaneously. But it is a manual process. The updater tool is not going to do it.
So I appreciate the fact that you have a remove unused runtimes button.
Yes, that happens quite a
Yeah.
bit as they update.
They don't get rid of the old runtimes. They just kind of hang out.
Yep. Or let's say, for
Yeah, that was
instance,
handy.
if you install AbiWord, okay, and you get
Mhm.
one set of known runtimes with AbiWord, and then you install, I don't know, Nautilus, and you get a different set of runtimes. Well, if you uninstall Nautilus, it doesn't remove the runtimes. It leaves the runtimes behind, which makes the next installation that needs those runtimes really fast, right? Because it's not 40 gigs anymore. It's a few hundred kilobytes, but all that crap is left behind. So yeah, that's why the unused runtime thing's there.
Yeah, that's great. So
I only use two Flatpaks. Zoom's one, and Kden Live is the other. I use that in a Flatpak.
Okay. So are there any areas to highlight that from the panel here that you think is really neat about MX Linux? I did get I remember who said it in the chat, but they thought that MX Linux was a little bit heavier than they remember. So it was I checked, it's about 1 gigabyte of RAM it took up. Does it kind of adjust based on how much RAM you have available?
Yes. So I can run it, like I said, I can run it on my EPC that only has 2 gigs of RAM. I can run it on, I got another little netbook machine here that is really lousy. It has a 32-bit UEFI in it. And this is actually the machine. This is one of the things that Mark Greaves of Peppermint fame, he and I bonded one night over 32-bit UEFI and this lousy machine right here. He bought one just like it so he could get Peppermint to boot on it. And
that's fantastic.
It is a terrible machine. I don't even know why this thing was made. Okay. It's got USB 2 ports. It has terrible battery life. It's got a headphone jack that's so close to the card slot you can't have anything in it and still use the headphones. It's just, and then for whatever reason it has a full-size HDMI port on it. You can't run anything high def on this thing. You have to save your life. It's terrible, but it's been great for testing 32-bit UEFI.
So,
but I noticed on that machine, it only has 2 gigs of RAM, and I can still run MX on that machine. It's not, obviously, I'm not filling up a gig of RAM with that. But yeah, certain things it gets heavier every time we bump a major Debian version. The kernels don't get smaller; they tend to get bigger. So we go up a little bit.
Right. And MX Linux, if I download the 32-bit version, does that come with 32-bit UEFI?
Yeah. The 64-bit does too, for that matter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could install 64-bit MX on a 32-bit EFI machine,
Wow.
as long as the machine supports 64-bit processing. I don't know of any 32-bit processors that have 32-bit UEFIs. I'm not going to say there isn't one, but I think UEFI came around after 64-bit processors were mainstream. So I know the EPC is MBR, legacy boot.
I have this old Dell tablet that has 32-bit UEFI, and I tried dozens, not MX apparently, of distributions, and I've not been able to get that to boot on anything. So now I want to find that.
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, it's there. I don't know if it'll boot on the Dell tablet, but it will on machines that'll. I know we have some people that install the 64-bit on some MacBooks that have 32-bit UEFIs. That's the other major place you see 32-bit UEFI is the some of the older Mac implementations have 32-bit UEFI. I don't know why they did that, but they did.
How touchscreen friendly is MX?
I mean, it's XFCE. I don't know that I'd want to use it with a touchscreen, but I mean, there are people who use a touchscreen and it will work.
Okay.
I had it on I ran the live USB on my wife's Yoga at one time, and I could use it with the touchscreen. But like I said, it's not set up for touchscreens. It's not big friendly buttons for big fat fingers.
Yeah, you could probably just scale that up, I'm sure.
Plasma would work though, wouldn't it? On a touch screen, should work.
Oh, I don't know. I suppose so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I think I might try that out. It might be worth.
Oh, I will mention one thing because I know you guys like to be on like, you guys are all cool and stuff and probably run Wayland and things from time to time. So
Sometimes, yeah.
So the KDE release, I don't remember if Beta 1 had it. I think Beta 2 has
No.
Wayland support on it.
Beta 1 didn't have it.
I didn't think so.
Beta-
I thought we left
Beta
it
2
off.
does.
Beta 2 has, it's only missing like one package to do it. So we put it on there. It defaults to X11, to Xorg, but the Wayland session is on there. And I don't know. I've used it on this machine, and it's worked fairly well. So I haven't really had any trouble. I haven't tried any NVIDIA hilarity with it. Just ran it with the straight kernel drivers, but it is there. So if you want to try it, the KDE Plasma release will have the Wayland session on disk. You can try it in your session chooser.
Well, as soon as the stream's done, because I don't want to do anything that could potentially like mess up the stream.
No.
Because it's kind of like baling wire and duct tape just to do the stream.
I understand.
Yeah. But afterward, I think I'm going to download the KDE version because I would love to see. I bought that tablet for like $80. It had no operating system on it, and I thought, wow, I'll just put Linux on it. And then I banged my head against it for months and months and months. Then I put it in storage. I'm like, well, forget it. So now
tablets, even when tablets say they have standard hardware, they have very particular implementations in firmware. So who knows if it'll actually work? But the 32-bit UEFI support is present on the disk. So good luck. Maybe it'll work for you.
So I even tried like modifying Grub on OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, the 32-bit version, trying to get it to boot like Grub or whatever, and then I couldn't get it past like the Grub, get the Grub prompt.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it past that, and I did one on the forums and nobody could help me, and I just yeah.
Yeah, well, you'll know pretty quick because if the live media won't boot, there you are. But it should. Well, all things being equal, it will. I don't know about the tablets. Tablets aren't equal though. We'll see what happens. Be kind of curious to find out what you find.
At one time, Fedora did work on those because there's a developer. It's like Adam Williamson, I think, a Fedora developer. He worked on it to get that tablet working, but he must have moved on from it because the version of Fedora that I downloaded didn't have the 32-bit UEFI. So maybe just downloaded the wrong one.
Well, I've got that Surface Go, and that's running OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, and X11 was just unusable as a touchscreen, but Wayland works perfect. So that's with Plasma.
Will it pop up a keyboard?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it does. I always thought GNOME was the best for tablets, but Plasma's not too bad as well. So I've left that on there because I found Plasma. I'm just using Plasma at the moment because I'm just exploring it, to be honest. But I thought the Beta 1 I thought it was a VirtualBox issue because I couldn't find the Wayland session. There was no box to choose on the login screen.
Right.
So I thought, maybe it's a VirtualBox thing. And then I think it was a couple of days ago you released Beta 2, came up on DistroWatch.
Yeah.
Thursday, yeah. So I downloaded it, and I think I installed it yesterday. And yes, the Wayland session was there, so that was handy. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm surprised as much works as it did. We haven't done any tuning for Wayland at all, so it's just kind of our first go at it. So we'll see how it goes.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts that they want to kick out there?
I was going to mention how Rick said that he likes that MX has the start button work with the Windows key, which is kind of like a problem in vanilla XFCE. I also noticed that MX has all the tray icons look the same, which is something that doesn't usually happen with XFCE, that they're all like the same size. So I don't know when that was made like that, but I do appreciate that.
Well, there's a setting in the tray settings, and I don't know if it's a default setting or not, but there's a setting for that, and In the past, we haven't done that, and this time we said, you know what? I can make that Pulse Audio icon look a lot smaller if I make all the other icons bigger. And then we also made the Pulse Audio plugin icon a little bit smaller. We've got a GTK override that sets it to about 80% of its usual size because it's enormous, because it's an XFCE plugin, and XFCE panel plugins are just have gigantic icons, and it was irritating people. So we set it to about 80% of the default size, and it works reasonably well.
Also, I noticed the new animation for startup and I guess shutdown. That seems very nice.
You like that? Yeah, it's just our new logo for our slightly early 10th anniversary and our spiritual successor 20th anniversary. We kind of overlap, so new logo it is.
Oh, that's the splash screen you're talking about, yeah?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. That was cool.
I didn't actually notice it before, but I had to try it just now. But yeah, that's great. I like it.
It actually has a bug, and we're fixing it right now. If you run an encrypted partition, and of course when you log in, it'll ask for your encrypted thing. That logo hides the encryption, the password box. So we're working on that. It's there. You can barely see it say enter your password. It gets hidden behind the MX Linux letters, and it's we should have caught that one earlier. But anyway, it's out, and it'll get fixed before we release.
I use I think MX Linux 21 on my laptop here. I was wondering the best way to process to upgrade that, and how does that work?
Well, Adrian is literally working on the upgrade process right now. It will probably, like we did with 19 to 21, it will probably technically be an unofficial process. However, we have made a lot of decisions to where we think that process will go relatively smoothly. We set up a lot of this kind of architectural back-end stuff with MX19 to 20, and then that worked out pretty well going to 21, and now I think we're going to have a similar situation going from 21 to 23. The only real trick to it is because of the way things get packaged in the Debian world, we may have to list out a few extra packages you might need to install to keep your init scripts, because when they depackage an init script in Debian, a lot of times they actually delete the thing, because I love Debian. Obviously, we're based on Debian. I'm very proud to be part of the Debian ecosystem. It really irritates me when they remove working init scripts, and they do that when we jump major versions. So the bad one from 19 to 21 was Network Manager. So you'd be very happy running on MX19 with Network Manager. Update to 21, and you'd have no network, because the init, and it would look like Network Manager was installed, because it is. It's just not running. Because there was the upgrade script actually removed the init script, and maybe there are technical reasons for that. I don't know. I'm not a genius when it comes to that kind of thing. I just took the init script from 19, packaged it up, and dumped it back on the ISO, so it's there in the package in the repo. So if you do lose it, assuming you can get a network connection, you can install it. So things like that might be a little hairy on the jump. Now, if you were using straight up systemd, the systemd mode, and you just booted straight through and did all your upgrades to that and didn't worry about sysb in it, you'll probably be really smooth.
So I have to bring this up because I had to not actually laugh out loud. But Anna Rita says, LOL, oh my God, my wife came into the room and said to me, Anna, I was listening to the stream, and Run with the Dolphin is my Linux Steve Jobs. And then Anna replied, what am I, chop liver to you? So anyway, I thought that was really funny. So you are somebody's Steve Jobs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Anna Rita, to your wife. There we go.
That's hilarious. So then, I guess what's left to go from beta to the final release? You know, you said usually around Christmas, but it seems like you're really early.
Well, here now we're trying, since now that we're not trying to have an annual release, we're trying to be a little closer to Debian's releases, and that worked out pretty well with 21. And I think it's going to work out pretty well with 23. The main thing keeping us from going to RC pretty quick is that I'm camping next week, and I'm going to be in the woods with nothing. So I'll probably still be in the forum on my phone, but I won't have a PC. I won't have electricity. So that's going to be my my period of rejuvenation, I guess, as much as you can get with a bunch of Boy Scouts running around giving you extra gray hairs.
It's good for you.
Yeah,
Keeps you youthful.
So as long as I can avoid tornadoes and major thunderstorms, I think I'll be pretty happy. So but really, we got a few things to work out. We're just basically tweaks at this point. We've got I mentioned the encryption thing. The installer's got a weird bug where if you use if you install to a Btrfs inside an encrypted vault inside a Lux encryption, normally we require you to have a separate boot partition that's unencrypted. The installer will actually let you install without the boot partition for some reason, and it shouldn't be. It should be telling you to choose a partition for boot. So we're looking into that. That's kind of a major one. A few odds and ends really at this point. Artwork's pretty well set. We'll probably change the conky slightly before we release for those that care. I'm not going to say that you'll notice there's no Oz release right yet, and mostly that's because when you're this close to a Debian stable release, you typically don't actually need it. Okay, Debian's pretty up to date at the moment. However, we are testing an updated firmware package and a 6.3 kernel. I'm running a 6.3 kernel right now, actually, and I'm very happy because my fans aren't running, nothing crazy is happening, so everything's good. So I don't know if we'll have the Oz ISO right at release time, but it might not come too far down the road after that. The Oz release saved my bacon on the 21 series because this laptop I'm using right now actually can't run the standard 21 release. It has to use all the Oz bits to operate because it's a 12th generation Intel. And it chokes. The Debian's the standard ones choke on it.
And just for clarification, just to make sure that I remember correctly, the Oz is the hardware enablement kernel.
Yeah, we advanced hardware support, but we pronounce it like Wizard of Oz. So Oz, and it's a separate repo. I'd have to look. The KDE ISO in the past has shipped with that repo enabled. It may still be doing so now. It's just empty at the moment. Everything is in what we call Oz staging. It's our test area. It's our pre-deployment area. So I'm running Oz staging right now, trying to see if we're going to have something at or near release time. But I would say, all things being equal, we get bugs worked out and everybody stays healthy and I don't get hit by lightning on my camp out. We'll probably release, sometime in July.
Nice. Wow. That's fantastic.
Birthday.
So pretty quick is from in the past. We didn't wait for Debian to even freeze before we started. We've been working for a while. I always joke when this time of stuff comes around, I've been running MX23 longer than anybody because I've been the first one to build it. But so as soon as I got something that was relatively stable, I installed it on this laptop, and I've been using it ever since. So it's a work in progress, but I'm finding fewer things to pound on with the hammer. So we're almost there.
Mhm.
The Fluxbox ISO has gotten probably the most changes to it. It'll be a lot. The default configuration will be a lot different when it ships. It's pretty close on beta 2. There's a few extra things that they're working on, but from between the Flux, the first one was the first Fluxbox release was 21, so this one's going to be quite a bit different than 21.
Yeah, I think Sean Gold says so. Christmas in July as a release date.
Christmas in July. There
That's
you go. And we haven't mentioned it, but don't forget all the cool live features. You can do almost everything we talk about running on an installed system, you can do from a live USB. And let me tell you, life changes. This computer I've got like, I don't know, 64 gigs of RAM, and it's just stupid fast, right? So if I take the live USB and I use the 2 RAM feature and just load the whole system into RAM, it takes a system that's already fast and makes it like stupid fast. Like things that take some time to load, like LibreOffice Writer always seems to take a little while to load. No, forget about it. It's done. It's up. When you can load the whole system in the RAM. So if you got the RAM, it's kind of cool to do that. The only trade-off is, writes go back, file system writes either go back to a USB or get synced up when you shut down or close. So that can be a little bit slow. But while you're actually running, lightning fast.
Well, that's very awesome.
I was going to say the menu options on the live USB. It's just so many of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Heaps of options.
I mean, not everyone's going to use every option, but yeah, there's one. My personal favorite is this one that I use all the time, is the one where if you have certain Intel graphics cards, it flips the direction that the brightness keys work, because on some, for whatever reason, don't know why, and it tends not to happen when you boot systemd. It's really only on the sysb side. If you use the down buttons to make your brightness go lower, it actually will go higher, which is really hilarious on first boots, because the default is to go to the maximum. So it goes to the minimum, and you get a bunch of people going, I have Intel graphics and I have a black screen. Oh no, just use your brightness keys. It's fine. Just do it backwards. Don't trust me, just do it backwards.
I think
funny.
I would like that just because.
We used to call it the feature. The switch goes back to the Antics days, and I had an HP laptop that did that. So we called it HP Laptop Fix or something like that originally, and then it's like we had to make it more generic because it was all kinds of laptops that did it.
Intel Fix, Intel graphics.
Yeah, Intel Fix. But there's a lot of features, and it seems it's almost overwhelming. I think we have more features now on the UEFI boot menus than we do on the legacy boot menus, because there's just a few extra things that it's harder to type custom codes in the UEFI side because there's no friendly text box to type into like there is on the legacy boot.
That's fantastic. So I super appreciate you joining us. It's nice to have you on. I know you're a busy guy and so forth, but I figure if at least once a year we do MX Linux, we can get you to show up.
Well, I've crawled out of my cave, so I appreciate it.
Is there anything like you need from? So we've been running the beta tests. Is there anything you need from the community that could help with the final release?
So right now we are. I think we're pretty well tested in the popular apps install routines. That tends to be the longest thing to get sorted out, because I've installed almost everything, but sometimes I missed one or two, and a user will find them later. Doing installs on edge cases with the installer is probably number one at the moment, because we're, like I said, we just identified this Btrfs /encryption / we're going to let you install on a system in a way that doesn't work. That kind of thing are the kinds of things we need to still iron out. The artwork is pretty well set. If you chime in and tell me you want a hotkey changed, I'm probably not going to do it at this point. Configurations are pretty well set, but as far as actually making sure the thing installs right, making sure things like snapshot are still working correctly, which I've run several, so I'm pretty sure they are. But we're looking for edge cases at the moment. So,
Hey, Dolphin, I got a question.
Yes.
Is XRDP, is that an edge case, or is it pretty common? The remote
Windows that thing. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know enough about XRDP to answer that question.
Okay.
It's probably not an edge case, but I also can't tell you anything about it.
All right. That's one of my that's one of my use cases that I go through, because I always want to make sure that I can remote desktop to
Yeah.
use RDP. So I'll give it a try. I'll mention it if
Hey, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if it works on Debian, it probably works on MX at the moment. So, I don't know if it'll work on the live, but it'll probably work on it. Let's see what else. I don't know. I guess that's about it. Like I said, the feedback on the beta 2 that we've gotten so far has been relatively. I mean, I know some distros would release with these kinds of bugs, and we're going to try to hammer them out before we release. So we're getting close.
One thing I would like to mention, you've got some really awesome wallpapers in this release.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are some good ones there.
So we did grow our art team a little bit this go around. We have a guy named his forum name is Freya or Freja. I'm not sure how to say it. English, I don't believe, is his first language, which is common. It's getting to be more common in our team as we've gone on. I mean, it's still the #1 language, but it's not the only one by far in our group. I think we've got German, Romanian, French. I don't know. It's a bunch. Anyway, it causes us hassles every now and then because things don't inflections don't translate quite right. We get mad at each other when we don't really need to. But so anyway, Freja, he created the logo, and he and another gentleman called Charles Five, he created the Plymouth boot splash that we get. Mm-hmm. And that's been going over well. And Asquith, our art director, had a lot of really great submissions with the artwork, and we're really happy with the set we got. And we try to include as much as we possibly can. Actually, we probably include more than we probably should, but we get so many submissions. We want people to submit, so we want to use them. It's kind of the same idea we get with the MX tools. If we want people to contribute to the tools, we need to be willing to incorporate at least some of the ideas that come along with that. Now, sometimes we say no, okay? Sometimes we say no with some of the artwork, sometimes we say no with some of the tools, but we try to include it. So that's good. But one thing that we do need, there's been several tools that have got new strings up on Transifex, our Transifex page, and there's a link for that on our webpage. Just kind of ramping out some of those last few translations, getting those done for both us and Annex. We share it, which is awesome, right? Because if one group gets it translated, we all get it, okay? And we never take anything down. So even if you translate a string on an old app, if we use that string again, we get it. We collect it. We're getting to the point now where we can actually reuse strings from other projects and not have to translate quite so much. But that's very important work. And I spent a lot of time this last over in between releases trying to automate us getting strings back and getting strings to Transifex for making it easier for our developers. There was a bottleneck there, and it wasn't happening very well. And it's a lot faster now. We're incorporating that kind of work a lot faster than we were in the past. So that's good. The other thing is, and I didn't mention it, I mentioned it in the blog post, but we didn't talk about it tonight, is we do have some accessibility features on actually all the ISOs. I'm not sure how they're going to work. It's not my area of expertise. We did put them on there. So we've got the Orca screen reader, and we've got at least a screen magnifier tool on each of the ISOs. So if those work for people, that will be good to know. Orca, I don't think works very well on the XFCE release. I'm not sure it works at all in the Fluxbox release. It seems to work okay on the KDE Plasma release. So if people are needing the screen reader functionality, that might be the place for them to go and try. It might be the lowest hanging fruit for us to get working in a more consistent manner. But so those kinds of things would be good. There's a feedback thread link in our blog post on the announcement blog post. And I think DistroWatch has linked the blog post now. So people should be able to find that information as we go forward. And we still have we have the high contrast themes and all that stuff that we've had for years, but this is really our first shot. I think the screen magnifiers work really well. I'm less certain about the screen reader.
So it's your blog post is under the news section, so I can put that
Yeah.
link in the if someone hasn't seen it yet. I'll just put that there. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. But it is time for me to do some quick housekeeping. We're a little bit over, but that's okay. It's a good show. Our next week will be a news flight night. So if you have any news subjects, ideas, things that catch your eye that you'd like us to talk about, you can send it to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com or hit me or air us up in the Telegram or Matrix or Discord, wherever you like. If you have any other suggestions for like any discussions or distributions, applications, or even desktop environments, I guess there's a new one out there that's worth a shot. Any poll ideas, if you have any polls that you think that we should do, some straw polls, that would be awesome. And there's a Linux Saloon calendar at linuxsaloon.com or cubiclenight.com/linuxsaloon, but I'm going to change that here pretty soon. I just got to get off my lazy duff and do it. And sorry, Ulfnick, we didn't get to your thing. So next week, so we'll get to it.
All right, no worries.
All right, so for last call, Rick, are you doing anything fun? Any online fun activities here lately?
Not lately. I've been working for like about 4 weeks on a video, but I haven't finished it.
Okay.
I really got to record the next section of it and stuff like that. Had some technical difficulties on the first run through, and I got to redo it. So
it happens.
But I plan to have somebody interviewed for July, whatever the first Saturday in July is. So if anybody wants to jump in on that, they can do that.
Excellent.
Other than that, nothing to report otherwise.
Well, be sure to share in the Linux Saloon Telegram general chat or wherever, whenever you get that done, so people can check it out.
All right.
And then I or Eris will pin it just because.
Just because. All right.
Just because.
Thank you.
Mark, you have a fantastic group of enthusiasts. Are they still into Linux? And are they still from Atlanta?
Yes. The Atlanta Linux enthusiasts meet every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And we have at least 3 fans of MX Linux on there that religiously join and contribute information. One of the guys just absolutely loves running MX Linux from his thumb drive. His wife grabs his PC, or his laptop, and he just grabs his thumb drive and goes to the next device he can find, plugs it in, and goes to the coffee shop.
Off to the races.
So, but yeah, we meet every Sunday. There's no set agenda, but we do offer a help session to anyone that wants to join. We meet online now, so anyone is welcome to join us. You can get more information at ale.org. And again, that meeting time is U.S. Eastern Time, 3 to 6 p.m. every Sunday. And we'll try to help you out. And that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Linux User Space is on break, but keep an eye out for live streams or check out their back catalog. That's linuxuserspace.show. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. I have 2 co-hosts, Matt and Wendy, and we had a fine conversation that was so awesome. I can't actually remember it. All I remember is Matt trolling me something about identify as an unresponsive Windows system, and that was kind of irritating. But anyway, we were talking about rolling your own solutions for privacy because there was a thing that happened with Amazon locked somebody out. I don't know if you heard about that, of their smart house because they said naughty words. And, well, that can be unfortunate. So rolling your own solution, not a bad way to go. Or don't say naughty words. But I guess he didn't say the naughty words. But anyway, so you can check that out. Linux Out Loud. I have a website called cubiclenight.com. I do things sometimes, but not in a little while because of a new job. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so check out more shows at tuxdigital.com. Got Destination Linux, GameSphere, Sudo Show, Network, Hardware Addicts, so check that out as well. I want to thank you for your support, however you do it. Well, you know what I didn't do? Brian, did you have anything you wanted to shout out since you're new?
No, man, I'm just glad that you invited me to. Right, I guess I invited myself. I'm just, thanks.
Well, everyone, it's an open invitation to anybody, so it's not. We're not an exclusive group at all. We're just a bunch of nerds that have nothing else to do on a Saturday night, apparently, or Sunday morning.
And so am I. So I appreciate hanging out.
Sunday morning. Yikes.
Yeah, Sunday morning, Saturday night, whichever. Well, anyway, so thank you for being here. I should have said that, and everyone, of course.
Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks.
So I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both the Zoom meeting as well as YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching this show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time. See yous.
See ya.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
And use it.
Never.
Go ahead. Yep. No, I'm not playing Christmas music. So a little bit about MX Linux. Oh man, what was that? I have to cut that out. So what is the only time I disable? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
All I know is
I noticed.
Go ahead.
Thanks for the
There's a little
clarification.
checkbox.
Well, I want to get to like the desktop environment. So I did XFCE. Actually, before I do that,
Some of these applications
nice.
are. I'm sorry.
all right. Well, yeah, thanks, Brian, for showing up.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it. I got my Romulan ale here.
Dolphin, thanks for giving us the lowdown on MX. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for letting me ramble on like I do, because I tend to ramble when I start.
No, it's a lot of fun.
Excited,
because, yeah, it's really neat to see kind of the how the sausage is made of sorts.
Yeah, well, we're we don't have a big company to hide secrets behind, and and it's just there's about 23 of us now contributing in various ways or another. So it's I think we'll be okay for a while yet.
So is there an official organization of MX Linux, or are you just kind of a loose group of people that get together and do your thing?
So technically there is a nonprofit corporation that handles the finances. But for the most part, we're relatively loose. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we have like 6 people that do like code. And then we've got like 4 or 5 people that do art. And then I have a group that we call like the founders. And a lot of them are forum moderators right now. But they've been around since what used to be called mephislovers.org back in the 90s. And they're still running the forum. So those guys don't contribute much when it comes to, the more technical sides of things. But holy cow, if you get out of line on the forum, they're going to slap you with a fish. Yeah, they're going to come down on you hard.
Yeah.
So our forum every now and then we overshoot, but they tend to keep the forum pretty we call it civil. So we got those guys, and we used to have about 4 packagers. That's probably where we're the weakest at the moment. Is we only have 3 full-time that all they do is package stuff. I package some things. Adrian packages some things. We got a few other people that package a few odds and ends. But when we need like Mesa backported for the Oz repo, that we really only have 2 guys that are working on that. And then we have one guy that all he does is Mozilla stuff. So we get Thunderbird and Firefox pretty quick when they update. So but all this is manual. We don't have,
How much of that can you automate?
I have no
Or do
idea.
you-
None of us are DevOps
Yeah.
people. So I'm sure a lot of it
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
automated, but we're not automated at all. It's a handcrafted distribution, I like to say.
Yeah, I'm just beginning to get into Debian packaging, and I'm trying to figure out where automation comes in.
Well, we're
So
looser
that-
than Debian, but Debian's tight. Your
Yeah.
packages have to be
Well,
right.
this is for Ubuntu Budgie.
Oh well, okay, that's fine. Same kind of. I would guess Ubuntu Budgie will be slightly looser than Debian. Debian's policies are very, very tight, and if you don't follow their policies, you don't get into the repo. But at any rate, I don't know. People ask me that occasionally. I really don't know how to automate that sort of thing. I am a concrete and stormwater guy by
Complicated.
trade, and I don't really know anything about automating package building. We backport so much stuff. Those guys, mostly we ride the Debian repo, so a lot of stuff we kind of we don't deal with.